Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the UGASports Call-in show. I'm your host, Paul Maharry, joined every week by Ben Choppy Bachman, but this week we get the one and only Radi Nabulsi, UGA Sports publisher, to join the call-in show. So it's going to be crazy. We don't have much to talk about tonight except for Roddy's beautiful. What are you drinking over there, Roddy? Something strange behind you.
Limoncello.
Oh, there you go. So yeah. Whatever.
Drink it. You're not supposed to drink the way I've been drinking it.
You just straight
straight out the bottle. Hey, my wife's not here, man. My kid's not here. My son is in Orange Beach. He told me he's entered a bodybuilding contest.
Yeah, I saw the video
for the physique. Yeah, he's all ripped. And my wife's in Israel for a month, digging in the dirt, doing archaeological digs. So I'm left by myself. So it's been a week of probably just, bad food and getting drunk. So
kind of how like Ben lives his whole life by himself.
That is true.
Bad food and getting drunk. So, well, welcome to the team, Roddy. We're glad to have you. And guys, we're glad to have you guys watching as well from home, wherever you're watching us from. Hope you guys are having a great July 4th weekend. If you are watching, yeah, I'm getting there. Damn it.
Dude, I'm excited.
Go ahead and share it with all your friends, guys. Like the video, and as always, we want to know where you're watching us from, guys. So if you put it in the comments section, we'll shout it out, put it on the show. We get some cool ones. We get Japan. We always get a guy from Tokyo, Japan in the comments after the show, so I guess he's watching it maybe when he wakes up. But let us know where you're watching us from, guys. And then if you have any questions about Georgia Bulldogs, we're going to touch on the decommits, touch on the commit, and then also touch on what it means for college football with UCLA and USC deciding to jump ship over to the Big Ten. I've got a strong piece of mind on that, if you will, opinion.
It scares me.
Yeah, it should. Getting right into it, though, guys, while I share this, I'm going to throw it to Ben. Georgia got another big-time cornerback commit, this time Daniel Harris. Who is he? What do we need to know about him?
Well, he's out of Gulliver Prep High School, so he's one of those South Florida defensive backs, and he's also a teammate of a top 50 wide receiver, Jalen Brown, who Georgia's recruiting. He's going to officially visit in the fall. Daniel Harris is over 6'2". He's a really long, physical, and fast cornerback. And when you look at it, Fran Brown, I think everyone was looking at last year saying, wow, they signed maybe the best DB class ever, especially in program history. And I just remember saying, well, how are they going to top it this year? I thought A.J. Harris was a possibility, but I said, I don't know if they're going to sign, they're going to sign a lot of developmental guys. No, they're hitting home runs with DB again. And really, to me, I look at it and say, when you have the year they had on the field on defense, it sells itself. And when you have three coaches, your DB coach, one of your defensive coordinators who has SEC head coach experience, and Kirby himself, all being DB guys at heart, it makes it hard to not want to go to Georgia and be a defensive back. It really doesn't. You look at what Will Muschamp has done at South Carolina. You look at what Kirby's done when he came into Georgia with guys like DeAndre Baker, was a low 3-star, ran poorly at the combine and wasn't that big of a guy, and he won the Thorpe Award and was a first-round pick. You just look at the resume that they have with every DB, that they've really maximized their talent. So I think that this just continues. It says, regardless of depth chart, they're going to get the best DBs in the country.
What does it say, though, about every other position? Yeah, the defensive backs look good, but you've got one wide receiver committed right now. I mean, the offense, we've talked about it ad nauseum, right, throughout the offseason. The offensive side of the ball last year lacked a little bit. You can go on to this year. Defense is rolling again, man, but that wide receiver, I just don't see the playmakers. I don't know. What's going on with that?
Well, I think that a lot of their targets aren't deciding soon at wide receiver. Like a lot of the guys they've been recruiting at receiver haven't committed yet. Hakeem Williams hasn't, Jalen Hale. I'm trying to think. Tyler Williams said he's committing in September, and Georgia leads for him. So it's one of those deals where a lot of guys deciding late, but I understand why for a lot of Georgia fans it's like, well, it's a little bit scary knowing that you don't have as many commits to fall back on and things of that nature when a lot of these guys are deciding late in the process. And if you miss, you don't have the time to go to your plan Bs and plan Cs. So I think they're recruiting a lot of guys at receiver just in case. But I think a lot of their top targets are deciding later in the process. I think the big whiff is quarterback right now because I think they went all in on Arch. And if they don't have a quarterback
back to that already, okay, all right.
Oh, I know you claimed your victory, so because you were justifying them not taking them, but Who knows? Maybe in the long run, if he doesn't turn out well, Paul, maybe you're a genius, and maybe I have to give you that. But
or maybe he does end up at UGA. It's just 2-3 years down the road. You never know. Clifton Riles, listening from Norwich, Connecticut. Happy 4th, everyone. We appreciate that. Will Dickerson, Norwich, Connecticut. Did I say it right? Right?
Sure you did. Sure.
Clifton, tell me if I said that right. I think I did. Will Dickerson says, time to be a dog. Trenton, Georgia. He's always pulling up. And I knew this was going to come up, guys, so we'll just don't jump right into it. Sadir Mitchell choosing to go with Texas. Texas has been on a roll since Arch. I have a buddy who is a big Texas fan. I haven't heard from him in, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. And slides into my Facebook.
Shit now, ain't he?
Yeah, slides into my Facebook DMs. And he's like, hey, man, how about that Texas recruiting class? And I was like, yeah, it's the Arch effect. I mean, this is what happens when you bring in a Manning or it's a top prospect of the last 2 or 3 years in terms of overall hype. And this is what you get. Sadir Mitchell is now joining them at Texas.
But he's not going there because Arch Manning's going there. He's going there. And Arch Manning did not go to Texas based on NIL. And I was told this from people who were right in the thick of it. They said, look, when I asked how his recruiting visit went to Georgia, I'm like, did they have a good NIL thing? And he's like, no. We don't talk NIL with Arch. He doesn't want to hear it. You want to get the kid to tune out, start talking about NIL. He'll whip out his phone, do something different. But Texas saw what Texas A&M did. And they're like, hey, shit, we can do that. We've got the capabilities. We've got the oil money. We've got the sponsors. Remember, the University of Texas is a giant university.
Yeah.
With tons of very impressive alumni who have a lot of money. And so, Georgia's working on their Classic City Collective. Basically, hey, let's pull all our money together. And then as these kids sign with Georgia, because you can't offer it to them beforehand, but when they sign with Georgia, then we can set up these NIL deals where they promote X and, they are the face of Y, that sort of thing. Texas A&M nailed it last year with that process. Texas is doing the same thing. That's not to say Georgia isn't. Georgia's doing that, but it also comes down to when a kid's like, hey, I got to choose between these two. And boy, I really like the presentation those guys had. It is affecting where these kids wind up, And, as the coaches, you can't promise them this stuff. You can't sit there and go, hey, if you come to our university, we're going to do this. That's
unless you're Texas A&M and they have a 10-second video of a coach saying all the guys in the suites, they'll pay you lots of money to come here. But yeah. I wonder what.
You can say that because you have an NIL presentation that we're sure this is going to happen. You just can't go quite that far.
I wonder what grave Jimbo
lined up,
buried him in.
Yeah, here's our Classic City Collective guys. They'll do a presentation letting you know what they've got lined up when you come here. So it's it can't be used as an enticement to sign, but it absolutely is doing it. And until they change it, Texas is doing exactly what Texas A&M is doing. My point being, that's not all on Arch. So it doesn't help. I mean, it kickstarts it, but they've been signing a lot of these guys without Arch.
Yeah, and I think receivers and to an extent O-linemen are where you're going to attract with Arch. Yeah. The defensive side of the ball don't play necessarily with him on the field. So that's why when Arch, I believe he was interviewed by us at Rivals, every guy he said he was recruiting was an offensive player. He said, I'm talking to Caden Proctor, who just committed to Iowa. I'm talking to Jonte Cook, who did commit to Texas. Their receivers and offensive linemen. Like the top 5 guys he said he talks to are all offensive guys. And a lot of they picked up a lot of defensive commitments like Sadir Mitchell. So that was not an Arch, like Roddy said, that was not an Arch thing. Some of these receivers are, though. Arch has helped with.
Yeah, I don't know. You mentioned receivers earlier. Isn't what's the kid out of California, Hale?
Oh, yeah, he's out of Texas. Yeah, Jalen Hale.
Jalen. He visited with Arch, and everybody was talking about those two guys as a package deal. And we interviewed him the other day, and what did he say? He has Georgia still at number 1, USC at number 2. I guess what I was thinking California because he has USC at number 2. But again, that's a guy who's going to decide later in it. If you get a guy like that, that's another big get on the wide receiver side of the ball. Or on the offensive side of the ball.
Will says, I'm just here because Radi's getting bombed with the boys. There we go. Yeah. Radi doesn't know what day it is, Will.
Hey, it's Sunday.
Paul, know more about the Motel 6.
Radi doesn't know about that story. We'll have to film in later on the show when we stop talking about real stuff. Our man Martin's here. What's up, Martin? He's currently watching the national championship replay on ESPNU. Martin's a big. I don't like calling them fans of the show. Maybe like family of the show. Martin's a big family of the show.
Yeah.
You don't know him.
Sponsor.
Yeah. You don't know him, Radi, but Martin's big, so we like him. Mike Fria says, "Aloha, go Dogs." I'm guessing you're over there on the island. Got any room for us over there?
What a humble brag.
Yeah, like my Peloton thing the other night. And then yeah.
Paul can afford one. I'm sure.
I didn't read this all the way, so hopefully there's nothing bad in it. How come schools aren't getting called out for chasing money, just like players are being called out for going to school with biggest NIL deal opportunities? I'm going to read that again. How come schools aren't getting called out for chasing money, just like players?
USC, UCLA, they're chasing money.
Oh, okay.
Oklahoma did it. Yes.
So the man right here, as his name refers to, is going on to, I guess, our second segment real quick. The schools aren't getting called out.
They are getting called out.
Yeah, they are for ruining the tradition aspect of the sport and what makes it different.
Here's my thing. As I was going to sleep the other night, it kept running in my brain. Yes, football is going to make money for these schools, but you also have to think about if these schools were really in it for the student athletes. You're going to make these kids travel across the country to play a soccer game, to play a 3-day baseball weekend series. You're going to make your lacrosse team travel. And not all these teams, not every one of these teams gets to fly on a plane everywhere. A lot of these teams bus to go from school to school because they're so close. Now, you can't bus kids over from USC and then take them to Rutgers to go play one lacrosse game. What are you doing? What are you doing to basketball? Yeah, what are you doing to student athlete? He or she is not going to be able to get any schoolwork done. They're constantly going to be traveling 3 hours here, and then you've got 3 hours back, and time change, and this and that. Yeah. And it just kind of got to me the other night. I was like, man, this is really messed up.
So I can think about money grab in baseball, and he's right. Your points are dead on, Paul. It is a money grab, and the man right here nails it. Everyone cheers for the Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC, like, yeah, this is going to be great. But they were called up because basically, they were the heart and soul of that conference, and they're abandoning it for a gigantic payday. And we're talking millions. What was the last payout from the SEC? Was $48 million per school or $45 million per school. With a new deal, it could be, upwards of $60 million per school, meaning Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Kentucky, Georgia, Alabama, all those, Oklahoma and Texas will all get $60 million. USC, UCLA putting in that, jumping into the conference, huge payout for them as well. But here's the thing. He's right that people bang on the kids for chasing an NIL deal because it's easier to call out one person than it is to call out the whole school. It's like, well, the school has to do what's in the best interest of the student athlete. And Paul, you nail it because, well, it's really not in the best interest of the student athlete. Okay, baseball series, you travel on Thursday, you get there, you play your Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you fly back. They even have rules about when the last game has to be done on Sunday. That hard deadline about, okay, we can't play past this time because these kids got to get back home. Now, but think about basketball when you play that Wednesday, Saturday thing, and you've got at least once a week, you're guaranteed to have to go across the country.
What if you have a game Wednesday against Northwestern and then Saturday versus Rutgers? Are you keeping the teams?
Are you staying? I'm sure they'll do like home and away, but still at least once a week.
They're going to have at least 1 week where they're away and away, at least. In the schedule. And so,
or maybe they do that. They're like, hey, you're going to be doing Zoom classes,
That's what I'm saying. It's not the student athlete.
I think for the SEC, it's not as bad because the geography makes more sense.
Of course.
Well, for the Pac-12 Big Ten, it looks worse because, I live in Maryland right now, and USC, they're in the same conference. I know people who are at Maryland in their athletic department playing right now, and they're like, we have to travel all the way out there. Like, they are a bit upset about the travel. They're excited to play them. they're excited to be in California. They think it's harder on them with school because it's already hard as is with the student athlete schedule. So I think I think it is bad for the student athlete, but the schools are doing what's in the best interest of the schools. They're trying to make money. And I don't blame the schools for doing it. Do I think it's morally right? No, but you can't blame the school for making. I think USC is going to make like $30 million off their current TV deal. They're going to make close to $100 million off the TV deal when they go in the Big Ten. When you look at that number, you say you don't blame them. But in retrospect, if you think about the athletes saying, wow, I feel for them, but at the same time, the schools are doing what's in the best interest of the schools.
How much money is it going to cost you, though, to bus every single one of your teams over to the East Coast for 20 different games? I mean, of course, it's not going to be $100
million, man. You buy them a really nice, a G7, and
I guess you just buy your own plane and just start taking them over that way. I don't know. It seems weird to me. I saw an article today on Yahoo saying the Big 12 might be the next. That it might just evolve to 3 conferences. Basically, the Big 12 will be the next one because they're bringing in Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston, I want to say.
I saw something today. The Pac-12 is about to have a huge, even more defections.
Yeah, I mean,
ACC and such.
So the Big 12's reportedly looking at adding Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah. There goes the Pac. I mean, what happens to Oregon?
Paul, their geography makes no sense. The Big 12. They got UCF. They have BYU's in Utah, I believe.
Yeah.
And then you got West Virginia up north. If the ACC, dismantles, they'll probably take like a Boston College or somebody. Then you have out west. I mean, they might take, like you said, Arizona. I mean, their geography, they're flying all over the place. They're in the Midwest, they're in the West, they're in the East, they're in the South, and they're everywhere. So at this point, like the SEC is the one conference of geography. It makes sense. If they added Clemson, they added Florida State in those schools, they're playing schools that are right near them. I mean, Georgia and Clemson is an hour drive. So it's nothing really. So the geography makes sense there. For these other conferences, it doesn't.
Well, okay. So Radi, you're the SEC commissioner. Are you now getting on the phone and trying to expand this thing even bigger than, because you still haven't technically brought Oklahoma and Texas in? Yes, it's official, I guess, but until they get on the field and they're in the SEC, anything could happen, I guess, right? But are you now getting on the phone and saying, man, I'm about to go scoop up Clemson. I'm about to go try to get Notre Dame. I mean, I don't know. Is this now an arms race, I guess you could say, with conferences? Or is this just kind of a one-off weird thing with UCLA and USC, or what's next?
Yeah, I don't think it's a one-off, because I think we're still going to see the permutations of this, because you remember they had the alliance where these other 3 conferences got together and said, hey, we're not going to screw each other over. We need to stand together and kind of combat this evil SEC, this growing empire, because they have the ridiculous TV rights and they get 2 teams into the playoffs, and it's just not fair. And yeah, that lasted. That's basically, hey, everybody put down your guns.
Yeah.
So that can blast your asses. It was
right.
it was a messed up situation. So the SEC is lined up for regional supremacy, national supremacy. But if you get some other power conferences who can get some of these gigantic TV deals, maybe, you can't get as much money. So if you're the commissioner, you start looking at, okay, what can the other conferences do that would eat into our potential TV money, and how do we counter that? You can add Clemson, but does that give you another market? Does that give you? Does that jump up your prices? What you could charge to if you're the next time you go up for you're selling the TV rights. Does that do another? Again, every time you add, you're cutting the pie.
You're dividing it. Yes.
Right. So it's like, hey, we went from, we're going to go from 14 to 16. No big deal. Well, let's just add 20. Well, now instead of everybody getting a 14th or a 16th, now you're getting a 20th.
Yep.
Wait a minute. Now, as the conference commissioner, you're like, hey, it's great, but the presidents are like, hell no, we're not going to bring those guys in unless all of a sudden, our TV contract goes from 100 million to 150 million. So in other words, we're still going to see a 10, 20, 30% increase in our TV revenues by adding these other teams. And you get to the point where it says, well, we'll just have 2 people. I've seen people saying, we'll just have 2 conferences or 3 conferences. Well, if you got 20 teams in each one, I mean, if you're going to play an 8-game schedule, you may not see some of these teams for years. So,
I mean, how long did it take Georgia to see Texas A&M?
I don't know. I still haven't been to that stadium.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's been a long time. Yeah. So I don't know. I just think it's an arms race. I think it's not gonna look. It's gonna look weird, especially. It'll be cool for the first couple of years seeing Ohio State go against USC, I guess. But after that, it's like, all right, well, now these teams are just traveling to play. I don't know.
And also, I think when you start expanding out the playoffs, you don't need it as much. I think Coach Donovan made this good point the other day when we asked him about expanding it. He said, look, what's the conference going to do? The conference is going to look to see how big the playoffs are expanded. And I'm with him. I see at minimum an expansion to 8 teams. Okay. And what are you going to do in order to adjust your schedule? Are you doing pods? Are you doing divisions? Are you adding to the conference so that you get more teams into the playoffs, which gets you a lot more money? The more teams you get into it, that's huge amounts of money coming into the SEC coffers. So, and if they figure, hey, we stay at 16 and there's 8 spots available, we can get 3 to 4 teams, into it, then we don't need to add. But if all of a sudden it's only 6 teams, it's only 8 teams, playoff teams, and now all of a sudden, we can't. So I think the playoffs is going to have a much bigger impact on this than just TV markets and regionality.
Ben, any final thoughts?
I would say it might devalue the regular season, because if you might need to expand the playoffs, but you look at the conference championship game and you look at all the regular season games, I think it might devalue the regular season. The one thing I'll give the regular season of college football, every game matters so much. You can lose 4 games in the NFL season and still be the best team in the NFL. We've seen that time and time again. I think that takes that away, because you're going to see 8 teams in, and you're probably going to see teams losing the regular season and then go on to beat that team in the playoff. So I think it's going to take away that.
That's what Georgia did.
That's what Georgia did. But I mean, they're right. But there were only 4 teams in the playoff. Now we're going to see
they still did exactly
multiple matchups over and over. I will say this, Paul. I think a lot of people are talking about Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's the next big domino to fall. But I'm curious to see what happens with North Carolina. I think if I'm the SEC, especially in the regional footprint, outside of, I think Notre Dame's such a big moneymaker, I'd really want North Carolina. Because I think in Charlotte and Raleigh, I think in the TV market, they're a quality football program. I wouldn't say great, but they're a great basketball brand as well. So they're good in 2 sports to a degree. And I think that TV market's there. I'm interested to see what happens with North Carolina, because the Big Ten can make sense for them. So I just think that North Carolina is something that I'm really intrigued to see what happens. I think Miami's and Florida State, everyone's talking about. I'm interested to see what happens with the Virginia schools too, because Virginia Tech, they're decent. They used to be pretty good at football all these years ago, and
they've never won a big time championship in any major sport.
With Michael Vick, they were in a national championship, correct?
Yeah, Will Dickerson nailed it here.
Yeah, Will Dickerson says Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, Florida State needs to get an SEC fast. Yeah,
I don't know. I agree with what Ben's saying. To me, is like North Carolina. I mean, if I'm my next 2 teams would probably be North Carolina and Miami. Again, just grab those 2 TV markets. That's not a shot against Clemson. Clemson's a powerhouse, and you add them to the conference, it's great. But at some point, you're like, well, crap. If we keep adding these super strong teams, we're getting. All of a sudden, they've all eaten each other, and nobody gets into the playoffs. Everybody's got a 6-6 record. So,
but then on the flip side of that, I see Zinger Dog I'm going to bring Zinger Dog in just a second. But on the flip side of that, if you're North Carolina and Miami, wouldn't you want to almost stay in the ACC because you could have an easier road to the playoffs?
Absolutely. Screw the SEC. Who wants to play Alabama and Auburn every year?
That's what I'm saying. So
Auburn every year though. I mean, that could be a cupcake.
I mean, but I got a little fruit fly in here, Ben. But
the hell's that, Paul?
they spawn. And you have like plants and stuff. You know?
No, I have them. I don't have them up here. So I think it's just you. You smell, bro. You smell.
No, but. If I'm Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, Florida State, as long as the ACC doesn't implode, I'm like, look, we're cool, because if we go to the SEC,
that's the caveat, Paul. Because if they don't implode, then they can stay. Because what would be sad? No North Carolina and Duke anymore in college. Like that's to most people I would say if you take out, I'm a fan of this team, and I know a lot of fans will love Georgia, Florida because they listen to this. But if you take that off, when you look at all collegiate sports, Duke, North Carolina and college basketball might hold the most weight of any college rivalry, and that might go away. Like that is a sad aspect of like we might not see like some of the greatest rivalries, ever anymore because of something.
I mean, we might not see USC versus Oregon. Those were some great games back in the day.
Exactly. I mean, that is a sad sign because if you don't see North Carolina and Duke anymore, I don't care that Coach K and Roy Williams are gone. That's sad to me. That is depressing to me.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring on Zinger Dog. Isn't this your boy, Ben?
Yeah, everybody likes Penn.
Hey, brother, what's going on?
What's up, man? How's it going?
I'm doing all right. Good to see you guys. Everybody doing okay?
Man, it's good to be seen. Yeah, how are you?
I hear you're doing well. I caught a good bit of the conversation, and I missed some of it. So if I repeat something y'all said, I apologize. But I have an opinion on. I think I've told Ben this. I think it's going to be 4 conferences. I think there's going to be 4 teams from each conference. There's going to be a 16-team playoff, and that's what it'll be in the future. I think it'll be 4 huge. I think the Big 12 and the Pac-10 and the MAC and probably Brigham Young and a few others they'll all be together on the West, middle and West, and then you'll have the rest either in the Big 12, the Big 10, the ACC, or the SEC, and that'll be what it is. And the sad thing is, we're talking about football. I mean, what about basketball? You're going to miss all these small schools, or are we going to have the same large NCAA basketball tournament that we've had in the past? Is it going to change?
Yeah, they can't change March Madness.
They won't change that at all.
No.
So you think they'll even with the massive conferences, they'll just choose 8 to 10 teams from each one of those conferences, and they'll continue on the same way?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's the whole kind of point of March Madness, right? If it's just Power 5 teams, you're like, this is cool, I guess. But you have those teams. Oh, I can't think of it. I see them in my head. Who
Villanova?
No, the team that went this year. Villanova's a small.
Oh, you're talking about the Cinderellas.
Yeah, the Cinderellas. I cannot think of the school. I see him. He went to
Gulf Coast of the world.
Yeah, those guys.
Oh, the team
Florida,
in Pennsylvania. They were from
St. Peters.
St. Peters.
Yeah.
There's the school from Chicago that's been there a ton lately.
Loyola, Chicago.
111-year-old lady who watches every game, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because
you'll still have those automatic qualifiers, Ben.
Yeah. And I think that too, but I mean, do they share the money? I mean, these guys don't like sharing money. Are they going to share the money with all these smaller schools in the NCAA tournament? I mean, are these schools going to be able to afford to have a basketball program if they don't get $2 million to come over and play, Georgia or whoever it is every so often? I mean, you're going to have a lot of these schools possibly go away or maybe have to form their own deal,
Well, I'm going to piggyback on that, Zinger, because I like where you're headed with that. Because if you're talking about a 16-team playoff, that would be 4 games, right? So they're not going to expand the college football season because how many games did Georgia play this year? 15?
15.
Yes, 15.
Yeah, 15. So that would be 2 more, so 17 games.
There's that Monroe education coming through for you, baby.
That would be a full NFL season, man. Like, you can't do that. So you're going to have to eliminate maybe 1 game out of the year. And what are you going to eliminate? You're going to eliminate a cupcake, but that cupcake relies on you to help fund their program. So I'm kind of piggybacking off. I see what you're getting at, Penn, and this could affect those small schools.
A conference championship.
This could affect those schools.
I think the conference.
I've been told that they will never get rid of the conference championship. It just makes way too much money.
Yeah,
because I'm like, hey, what's the point of having it? It's stupid. If you want to get more teams into the playoffs, don't knock one of them out in the conference championship. Could have had a situation where Georgia and Auburn, they don't wind up playing each other, and they both make it into the playoffs with a decent record. Instead, all of a sudden, Georgia goes and curb stomps Auburn in the SEC championship. Auburn falls to whatever bowl they went to. This year you had Georgia and Alabama actually both made it, but it's usually one of those teams doesn't advance past that. So get rid of that and position your teams into the SEC play or into the national playoffs. But I was told, no, that absolutely won't happen because that game makes too much money. They're required to have it.
So then that tells me that the biggest you can go here, Penn, would probably be an 18 playoff, because if you're going to keep the conference championships, you can't go to 16 and a conference championship. I mean, that's too many games, I think.
Right.
Your season you'd either have to start the season August 1, or you'd end the season. I hate the 3-week period between the championship game and the Final Four. It makes no sense. So you can maybe put another game in there, but you'd end the season middle of January, early February. I don't know.
I think we do what they used to do. I think they're going to end up doing a 10-game interconference play. 10-game interconference play. If Radi says conference championships have to be there, that's the 11th game, and then you got 4 games to get to 15. So you play.
I don't see it because nobody wants to do 10 games in the SEC.
Yeah, there's
you
no
saw that 2020, that was miserable.
Right.
Yeah.
And also you wouldn't get enough home games. Sorry, Paul, didn't mean to cut you off there. But
I didn't cut you off either. It's just I don't see Kirby, I don't see Nick Saban, I don't see any of those guys going for a 10-game SEC schedule.
They're fighting 9 games.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I see where you're getting at, Penn, and it's going to eventually come to something. There's going to be a breaking point, but like Roddy said, if they're gonna keep the SEC championship games, I think you can only go to 18 playoffs. So you go to 16 is too many games.
And I don't disagree. It may be 2 teams. I'm just saying I was thinking 4. I think the money will be too much eventually, and that's what they'll end up doing. And they'll give these teams 95 scholarships or 100 scholarships or whatever it may be.
God.
I mean, I think that's where it'll go, because you're not going to have the same. People are going to complain that they're not the same opportunities at these smaller schools to make NIL or to do whatever. So they're going to have to. I think eventually that's where it's going to head. Is they're going to give more opportunities to people to play. So you're going to have these huge super conferences. And you're going to have, the also-rans that aren't even a part of it anymore, and how do they field these teams in other sports? I mean, it's going to be an interesting, I know, look, I don't want it. I don't want to see it go that way. I'm hoping that, smarter people will figure it out or whatever. But at the same time, I mean, there's a lot of money in something like that. And I feel like, it could head that way if we're not careful.
I mean, we've seen it. USC and UCLA going, Texas and Oklahoma going.
Paul, I will say this. I'm curious, regardless of what way it goes, how the divisions work out. Because people say no divisions. Well, then how do you have scheduling every year? Because you got to think, if let's say, I know the media has this big, there's going to be 2 super conferences, and you have the Big 12 being a formidable conference. You have some other lesser ones. You know what I mean? Like the Big 12 is kind of like that third conference, but they're so far behind. If that were to happen, if there was like 20-team conferences, how would they do divisions? Would it be like you'd have to have Georgia, Florida, maybe like 2 other teams, maybe 3 other teams? You would have to have them be fixed opponents, and then you would rotate 4 opponents every year in the SEC. Like, how would you do that? I just feel like it would be too and then if you did do that, how would you schedule what 2 teams are in the SEC title game if a bunch of teams have the same record? Like, I think it's really complicated to me.
Well, you kind of do it like the NFL does.
Yeah, I was going to say you had divisions like MLB, NL East, SEC West, and SEC Central, and you kind of do it like that. I don't know.
Well, he says they're working off a pod system where they were going to have like 4 pods. You played everybody, 4 pods, of 4 teams. You played the 3 teams in your pod every year. Then you play 1 team from pod B, 1 team from pod C, and then everybody in maybe pod D, and then you rotated around the other pod constantly. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But then they start talking about, well, all of a sudden we're going to 9 games. Oh, okay. But I mean, we talk about money. TV kind of runs everything, but Zinger, as you've seen, when you look at a town like Athens and they're only getting, 4 or 5 home games a year, sometimes not 4, 5. And other teams are getting 7 home games because they're paying these directional schools to come in. I just can't see them giving that up. Too many people are like, no, we're not going to play 10 SEC games where 5 of them are on the road and only get 5 at home. We want 7 home games, and we want some of those to be noon games against nobody's school. So I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I mean, the solution, that's the only simple solution that I see is making it, something like that. Because again, are they going to go to 10 teams? How do you, if you're doing the pods, like you say, how do you decide who are the best 2 teams when you got 20 teams competing that are playing, 7 or 8 games each other? It's going to be really difficult to figure that out unless you throw more teams into the mix, or are they going to let these other teams, like you're saying, do this and offer 2 spots to the best 2 non-power 4 or whatever you call them at that point in time, in the game? I don't know how they're going to fix it. It's something's coming because they're already combined. I mean, why in the hell would USC and UCLA want to go play, so far east? I mean, is the money that much better?
Ben says it is.
It is.
It is. And I know they want more, in the Big Ten is, there's going to be more TVs watching out west. So, I mean, I get that too. But at the same time, where is this thing going to end and how are they going to fix it?
That's the perfect point right there, Zinger, is where does it end? Because we saw it with Texas and Oklahoma. Texas A&M and Missouri, I guess you could say, technically started it, if you will, but Texas and Oklahoma started this arms race. The SEC got them, boom. Now randomly, this one is random as hell. UCLA and USC going to join the Big Ten. What's the next shoe, or is there a next shoe, or does it just stop? I don't think it just stops. And the NCAA is probably sitting there going, dear God, how do we rein this back in? With NIL going on, we've become a mockery in a sense. We've just got schools going halfway across the country to play whoever they want. For money. So cool. TV contracts. Do we have any semblance of, do we do anything here at the NCAA? I don't know. We're logo on there.
Well, they can't. Everyone wants to rip on the NCAA, and I get it. It is an issue. But remember what pushed all this was individual states making their own laws saying that, okay, if you're a student in the state of California, you are now allowed to make money off name, image, and likeness. And the NCAA is like, wait a minute. Are we going to sue? Are we going to all of a sudden make all the kids that go to any school in the state of California ineligible because it goes, and all of a sudden it basically, who has sway here? Then Florida did it. Then all of a sudden everyone else did it. And you're like, wait a minute. We're trying to come up with universal rules across 50 different state legislatures doing their own thing. And these legislatures working it so that their kids have an advantage in order to attract the best players in the country. Basically, someone decided, why the hell do we let the NCAA decide this stuff? We can decide on our own. And that always goes back to when we had the NCAA come out to speak to the Rivals publishers and Rivals reporters. Remember, Rivals is actually a NCAA certified recruiting service, i.e., we follow the NCAA rules. We don't cut corners. We don't recruit kids. We don't work as an extension of the universities that we cover. We don't pay for kids to attend we don't drive them to camps and stuff like that. We don't do any of that stuff. So we follow the rules. We're the only one that's actually certified by the NCAA for that. But when they came out and they said, people rip on us all the time, which is fine. We're used to it. But remember, what is the NCAA? Well, the NCAA the membership is voluntary. The rules are made by the presidents of these universities. And you'll hear the AD or the president or the coach complaining about an NCAA rule. And they're like, wait, it's like the Rotary Club. You volunteer to be, you come to the meetings. You can put forth a rule
Club
and decide, hey, new rule. This is what we're going to do. So if you're complaining about targeting or you're complaining about eligibility or transfer portal or something like that, the people that make the rules are the people in this room. It's all these presidents. So hey, presidents, if you don't like this rule, vote it out. Or you want a rule, vote it in. Or we don't have enough. You say we don't have enough teeth, or we enforce this rule too much. Change it. It's very simple. It's up to us to do it. So that changed my concept of the NCAA because all of a sudden I'm like, wow, this is basically just an association of of university presidents who make the rules. So that's now all of a sudden the legislature is like, wait, why are we letting the NCAA make the rules? We'll make the rules. So now the NCAA is like, we want to change the transfer portal and the NIL rules, but if we do that, then Connecticut's going to have a different rule, and then Florida's going to make a new rule, and then Georgia's going to make one, and then Texas is going to do. And they are just their hands are tied behind their backs because the lawyers have entered the chat, so it's over.
Yeah, seriously, I don't know how they're going to fix it. I really don't. I don't know how it'll end or who. It's going to end up in court one way or another, I'm sure, and that's where it'll be decided. Hopefully we'll have somebody. See, we left Roddy speechless, and he had to leave the room. You see what
he does that all the time.
this
Yeah,
conversation.
He leaves all the time.
Some might be off at Roddy tonight. He's like, "Oh, nobody wants to play Auburn." I think everybody wants to play Auburn right now. At this,
right now,
yeah. Wait, that's right now, man. Come on, give me a break. We're talking about traditional powerhouses. If you don't want to, if you join the SEC, it's like, well, let me play Georgia and Alabama and Auburn every year, or Florida every year, LSU. I mean, right now, sure, you want to play Auburn, and we just had a pretty good thing from Dash about playing, looking ahead on the schedule. Auburn's going to be terrible, but usually they're pretty good. And I mean, if you're North Carolina and you're like, hey, let's go join the SEC, and we get to get rid of Wake Forest and add Georgia. We get to get rid of Louisville and add Alabama. Awesome.
Good luck. Yeah,
hey, we get $45 million this year.
Hey, don't sleep on Louisville. They're about to get better.
They're throwing the NIL money out there.
Yeah, that Papa John's money's going, baby. I'm telling you right
now. Worst fast food pizza chain, Papa John's.
I don't think you can mention Papa John anymore.
No,
Zinger.
Papa John's not.
Am I ruining one of Roddy's sponsors? Who do I need to mention? Right, I don't need to mention Papa John's.
You need to mention Your Pie is the best pizza out there, man.
Your Pie, yeah, I would. Your Pie is 10 times better than Papa John's. You got that right?
It's not even the same
stratosphere. I just said that out loud.
There we go. They said Roddy left to find the belt in the Motel 6.
Roddy found my belt.
Yeah. Hey Zinger, you might be able to help Roddy with this. Clifton Ryle says, "Can you ask Bulldog Bob to join the show someday?" If we only knew who he was, Clifton, that would be great.
It could be Eddie from Ackworth this whole time.
Right. I have more people ask me that question than any other question. I probably had, I kid you not, 100 people on the board DM me and ask me who he is, or ask me to divulge who he is, and I'm like, I don't know who he is, and nobody believes me. Everybody thinks I know who he is. I have no idea who he is. I probably could figure it out, but I don't want to know who he is, to be honest with you.
Roddy's probably gotten that question ever since the dog vent started.
I've worked for Roddy for 8 years now, and not once has he ever mentioned. He's always said he doesn't know who Bulldog Bob is. So I've stuck with that, and I've never asked questions. I really haven't. I would love to know who it is, though. Like, when I get to my 30th work anniversary, when I retire from this place,
you would just get promoted from intern to staff. That would help.
I have seen a picture of him. I will tell you that, but that's the closest I have become.
Is it a grainy picture of?
I have seen a picture.
Is it? Yeah, it's just
right now. He's probably panicking if he's listening to this, but I haven't seen a picture of him.
Zinger's going to do a reverse Google search and with the image. And
what is it? The old comedy, The Other Guys. I'm going to do a face back app and see if I can't figure out who the heck this guy is.
Right. But we Clifton, if we knew who Bulldog Bob was, man, it wouldn't be nearly as fun, honestly.
No.
I mean, that I'm speaking for me. I'm sure the same for you, Zinger. That's probably why you haven't dug into it too deep, because it takes the fun out of it once you realize who it is. But
no,
he's a legend.
Yeah, I don't want to know
good
who
dude,
he is,
too.
honestly. Yeah, I mean, he's a nice guy. He answers a lot of times when I ask him a question here or there, but I haven't talked to him much here lately. I think Ben talks to him more than I do now. He probably's got a better line on who he is. Y'all, all those DMs that are going to me, send them to Ben now. He's probably got the best line on who Bulldog Bob is.
Now you're gonna have Paul on my ass, Penn. This is not a good idea.
I have a few suspicions as to who it is. If it is who I think it is, then that person does a lot for the University of Georgia.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be around for a long
that
time.
Connected.
Yeah. Same with Frank. I don't want to know who Frank is either.
Oh yeah, Frank. I think I know who Frank is, but we'll leave that for another day.
I'm afraid you might end up dead and buried if you figured out who he is.
Hey, Roddy, can you tell me who Bulldog Bob is? And I'm like, dude, that'd be like no.
I just get a knock on my door tonight.
Bulldog Bob didn't kill himself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
Makes Jeffrey Epstein, man.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Jeez. This show's taking a turn.
Yeah, we're off the rails right now. We got to get back on the rails. Let's talk about conference expansion again. Recruiting or something.
No, hey, speaking of, actually, I'm gonna share one of our buddies here. Go ahead and y'all move on to the next topic there.
All right. What do you mean? Where are you going?
Which one?
I don't know.
Which one? Is there one that just ask a question?
No, I just needed to share one of our sponsors here.
Oh,
there it is.
I'm not getting off the rails. I want to mention our buddies over at the Rogue Shop and some of their Delta 9 gummies and their Delta 8 gummies. So the point being, they have a sale right now, 30% off anything on the Rogue Shop. So if you want any of the fantastic gummies, the lollipops they make, the edibles, the tinctures, the pain medication, the sleep products that they have, any of that stuff is 30% off on their July 4th deal. All you need is the promo code July 4. So put that in, go to the Rogue Shop, put in July 4. I'm pretty sure you can spell that. I can spell it as drunk as I am. And you will get 30% off any product on their site. So their topical pain relief, their sleep aids, their hemp flowers, and then they have some THC-free stuffs. And remember, if your place of work tests for THC, be very careful which one of these you order. And they'll let you know in the section, in the descriptions, whether or not you will test positive for THC if you take some of these gummies. So be very careful which ones you get. They do have some THC-free items, and then they have some THC-heavy items. So, but again, that's our friends over at the Rogue Shop. I know the guy. He's a former military guy who runs that place. He grows all his own stuff, and he came up with a 30% off deal for July 4th, promo code July 4.
Make sure if you take those gummies, take them at night once you get home, not in the morning.
Hey, when you get your first order, take a half one.
Dear God.
Half.
Yeah.
Much bigger help.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Don't
give them to your dogs either.
No.
They do have a great tincture, it's a little dropper of a CBD product that I gave to my dog. It's bacon flavored. She has this arthritis in her back. And normally she wants to jump onto the bed or jump onto the couch, and she's just she's 10 years old, and she gets up and she starts whining because she can't do it. But
with this tincture, she actually flies.
She doesn't fly, but it is the anti-inflammatory and cut down on some of the pain in her back, and she was jumping a lot better. Her walks are longer, and it's bacon flavored, so she loves it. So
Ben would like that too.
I'm like, okay, worst case, and he sent me a bottle of it to try, and I tried it, and I'm like, crap, the dog loves it, and I don't have to pick her ass up every time she wants to get on the couch. So
right,
ain't that right, Dan? She stays under my desk all day long. So.
Also, Paul, you actually have a friend in Penn over here with the Braves. He might be a bigger Brave guy than you.
Oh yeah,
100%.
Yeah, I'm big, huge Braves fan.
Let's go to a game.
I grew up with Bill Shanks, so
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So,
apologies.
Bill and I started his show back when I was 7 or 8 years old. We started his show.
Damn, he just left you in the dust.
But he started broadcasting games at 15. He started broadcasting high school games at 15, and then he just went from there. He was on the radio all through high school.
So Darren Mitchell just committed to Texas.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's before we got on the show. Yeah,
I said just committed. Committed earlier today.
I had a little rant on that. I know y'all protected his. Blaine did a good job protecting his source or whatever, but that kid went on and on for 10 minutes in a couple of interviews about how NIL meant nothing and development meant something. Well, the last time I was on the show, we were talking about the draft, and Texas didn't get one single player drafted. And he's talking about it's the development that he's going. I put on there Fayetteville State and Mercer had people drafted and Texas didn't, and yet he was more worried about development. This is what he was saying. So he decided he could have gone to any of the other 10 schools that offered him and would have been in a better place than Texas for development, which blows my mind. Just tell us what it is. Don't lie about it for 10 minutes in an interview. I don't know. That's just my rant for the night.
Here's the thing, though. If you land Jamal Jarrett, you forget about Sadir Mitchell pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt.
You shouldn't, though.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to hurt our class, from this point forward. But
it does. Come on, Ben, it does. Because Georgia wanted Sadir Mitchell. He was coming to Georgia until last minute, and Texas's pitch was strong, and he's going there. And now you're also losing. Was it Warnock? Who's the other kid going to Miami?
Antoine Jackson.
Jane Wayne.
No, Jane. Yeah, and the other guy's going to LSU.
Deshaun Womack.
Womack, not Warnock. Womack.
Mm-hmm.
You see, I've been watching too many political ads. Womack's going there. Womack's going there, and Wayne's going to Miami. I mean, you're missing out on some of these kids, and it's guys that Georgia wants.
I don't disagree.
You'll get Jamal Jarrett. Jamal Jarrett. I sincerely believe that, but it would have been Georgia definitely wanted Womack and Sadir Mitchell.
I'm not saying that's not the case. I hope that didn't come off that way. I know that they wanted him. I'm just saying I don't think it will hurt that bad because there's guys out there that are similar to him.
Yeah,
that I think recruiting. And Kirby always look. One thing he does that I appreciate more than anything is how he manages the roster every year. If we miss somebody or miss something, he will find it either in the portal or he'll go find it somewhere in their interim, or he'll pick up 2 or 3 the following year. I mean, we're pretty deep at D-line right now anyway. It's going to take a little while for somebody to hit the field for any number of snaps,
Like Walter Nolan coming back from Texas A&M?
Right. I mean, look, I'm hearing that. I mean, you're hearing a lot of – that was somebody – I can't remember who said it earlier, but there's several guys that they say are already unhappy where they are.
But that's the thing.
Or what, but
you don't recruit for – I mean, you recruit for this signing class, but now you have to recruit for the transfer portal. That's why you don't say anything bad about kids. You don't rip them. You don't go sour grapes on them. Oh, we didn't want him anyway. No, it's
that's what we talked about last week.
Yeah,
Kirby's done a great job of that. D-Rob. I mean, the list goes on and on.
And Paul, the 25 rule is gone for the next 2 years, I believe, that they're pushing for. And if that's the case, they can go, okay, we're going into sign day. Oh, this big D lineman's entering the portal. He's higher than even some of the guys who we have committed. We would rather have, there could be that situation. That's happening. Because I remember the 2018 class. People remember Javian Becton, the Georgia legend there, Aaron Brule, guys like that. They didn't end up with the spot because Georgia actually had guys like Bretton Cox and Cade Mays who were committed to other schools, guys you might not want to talk about now, but they ended up flipping them. They were highly rated names who Georgia had no chance at that summer. And then as Georgia had that great season, they flipped them. Marvin Jones was a kid. Georgia wasn't in his top list at all. Then he visited in October. Then he came back in December, and he ended up signing with Georgia as a 5-star. So we have a lot of time.
Then to your point, as the season progresses, there will be changes. Georgia has a solid season like we all expect them to. I think they'll be a double-digit favorite in every game they play. Getting into the SEC championship game, could be 12-0. Maybe they win that. Maybe they don't. But going into that early signing day, Georgia maybe has 1 loss on their record. But you saw what happened when right before signing day with Dalen Everett. This kid, all of a sudden, hey, there's coaching changes going on. Oklahoma hired away your defensive coordinator, Dalen Everett. I just have a weird. It's probably the kiss of death because every time I get high on a guy, he doesn't do well. But I just think Dalen Everett is going to be a 3-year. I don't say starter, but in 3 years, he's off to the NFL after having been a lockdown corner at Georgia for 2 years. And it's a guy that you think about. Man, he was definitely going to Clemson until 5 days before signing day, and he flips to Georgia. Yeah. I just think that is one of those huge stories that you just never forget. Like I remember sending Paul to go see
Eric Stokes
out of the blue. I'm like, well, maybe. And we didn't know how big it was at the time. I don't think we realized how big getting Dalen Everett was. And like to your point, Ben, Marvin Jones Jr., when we would do the show with Coach Don, and we joke about having that mouth-watering player of the week or something. But when he starts talking about, Mykel Williams and Marvin Jones Jr., it really has that feeling of Stroud and Seymour again. He's just like, I can't believe we got those two guys. He's just on a team full of loaded players. He just starts shaking his head, and you could just see the drool start coming down the side of his mouth. He's like, those guys are going to be monsters. And like, to your point, I mean, Marvin Jones Jr. wasn't in it early, and he did miss on some guys at the end of that cycle, but sure enough, in 2 years, you could have a Nolan Smith coming back to Georgia, So it's Georgia is going to do well in the transfer portal. That's just Alabama's going to do well there. The rich are going to get richer through the transfer portal and through the NIL deals. Right now, Texas A&M kind of nailed it in that first year. But if you think Georgia's going to sit back and not, and get their ass handed to them because of other teams putting together NIL deals, hell no. Kirby went out and got one of the best guys. He went and got the Barstool guy, Matt Hibbs, who's like, who was a great guy. He knows NCAA compliance, so they're not going to break any rules. And he knows basically marketing. So it's going to be they've got a great guy running the Classic City Collective, and Georgia's going to be able to go toe-to-toe with anybody when it comes to NIL deals.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's going to be some regulation, and that's why he's not throwing out, big money to all these players right now, as he's waiting to kind of see what comes down. And I honestly believe, I put this out on the board a few times, I think he's not throwing it around because, I mean, how are these guys going to react to some kid making, $5, $6, $7 million and him spending that money while on campus, while these guys are making, maybe 10 grand or 15 grand in the collective? These guys going to block for him? I mean, the first sign of adversity, you got to think something bad is going to happen or the team's going to implode.
I've been saying this.
Yes.
That's why I don't pay anybody on my staff.
Paul's point is, you have a guy, let's look at Ruben Owens at Louisville. He's going to Louisville. People think he might make millions of dollars potentially going there. Let's say these other guys at Louisville are making nothing, and this kid hasn't stepped on campus yet. He's making millions of dollars. What do you think that's going to do in the locker room? This kid is a backup. He's not doing anything. He's worth millions, and we're worth what? Like, that could be a problem. And also, I think that could also lead to, if a lot of these kids flame out, the market is going to eventually, I think, die down. I think a lot of these boosters are going to say, okay, we're throwing in money, and if they don't see results, they're like, we're not going to throw money on some of these kids. We're throwing money on high school guys transitioning to college ball. It's a risk.
That happens in high school. I mean, you got a guy that has a nice car, and you line up across from him on the football field. You lay his ass out because you're like, I don't like the fact that you have got a Dodge Charger. Your dad yelled at me in third grade Little League,
And now you're not putting.
Go ahead,
now they're not pulling up in Dodge Chargers. They're pulling up in like Maseratis and Ferraris on campus now.
One kid was promised a G-Wagon.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing, Paul. I literally was about to say, I said they're going to really enjoy somebody pulling up in a Maserati while they pull up in a Ford Focus.
Right. You know what I mean?
Like Ford Focus,
Yeah, you get out.
Hey, let's not make fun of Ford stuff.
Yeah, you got to pour a cup. You keep a special racetrack cup that you can pour water into the radiator when you get out, and this kid's getting out in his Ferrari next to you, and then you got to go block for his ass, and he wants to give you lip when you get back to the huddle. Dog,
right?
I'm missing that next block.
Whoops.
Leave that.
How did he get back there?
Where'd he come from? I don't know.
He's really fast. I tried to put my hands on him. I tried.
You're like, he's the walk-on defensive end. I don't know. Today's the day.
He's having a good day today.
Story to watch. I think Texas A&M is going to be fun to watch because I think you're going to see a lot of that happen. The minute they have their first loss, the minute something happens, you'll start to see that thing tear apart. And that's what Roddy was saying with Walter Nolan and the Shaw kid. And I mean, how many they can't play all those defensive linemen at one time. There's somebody coming back, 2 or 3 coming back. And I bet you the DB from Bainbridge is probably wishing he hadn't gone over there right now too. I bet.
Oh, Smoke. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see Smoke again probably.
They signed 7 D linemen, by the way, in that class. Like, when you look at it, like 5 of their top 6 players are D linemen. So when you look at it from that perspective, you're like, they're very position heavy as well, which makes me think that class. When you look at Georgia, outside of I know receiver the last 2 years, they've been very good at recruiting every position as a whole. They've been really good position by position and really position heavy. And the points aren't dictated by the positions. It's dictated by just the players individually. So that's one thing to look at with A&M is they're really heavy at like one or two positions where others are kind of weaker. So that's one thing people aren't really talking about much. By
Like
the way,
Georgia with O-lineman.
Not anymore.
No, not anymore. Is that what is that what the deal is now? People are not going to recruit him.
I don't know, Zinger. Maybe a different show for a different time. I don't know.
Oh,
Maybe
Paul's
CJ
not
Shanahan,
hating on Searles,
y'all
huh?
be excited.
Searles.
Searles.
Is the question?
I don't even know. Is that how you say his last name? Searles?
I think so, right? Searles.
Coach Searles.
Spelling it is the problem. If you've ever tried to spell it, it's the most misspelled staff name ever, I think.
Hey,
But no,
I don't want to hear about misspelled names. No one gets mine right. That's okay.
We've gone an hour. You guys want to keep going, or you want to shut this thing off?
Well, I'm a little drunk, so I need to go.
All right. Well, hey, Zinger, Penn, man, we appreciate you joining us, and
always good to talk to you guys, man. And I really appreciate y'all having me on. It's always a pleasure.
Hey, I appreciate it, Penn. It means a lot to me.
Get to talk to Ben, and it's always a pleasure to get to talk to you, Paul. I told you I would not mention anything this time, so I'm just going to walk away. Hey, y'all have a good night, guys. Thank y'all.
All right, buddy.
All right.
See you, man. Bye. All right, guys. Well, we are going to go ahead and wrap this thing up, guys. We have gone a full hour. We talked a little bit about Georgia, talked a lot about conference realignment, NIL. Radi, we've got what? How many more days until summer practice?
Until practice? 1 month.
1 month. And the players are back home right now. They're
allowed
to go back home
the
right
players
now.
are off till the 11th.
Yeah, so
or the 6th or the 11th.
Probably the 6th would be my guess. But just cross your fingers, guys.
Yeah, I'm probably getting the players confused with Dash. Dash comes back on the 11th. So
yeah. So cross your fingers, guys. You've got 3 more days for all your Georgia football players to get back without any arrest. And you got to get back through ACC PD too. You got to get back through the hometown guys on the way back.
If you didn't see the guy make the brownies,
don't
eat the brownies. That's my warning for spring break every year. I'm going back to what was it, Bakari Rambo back in the day.
Yeah.
But so you can tell I'm old, but just say don't eat the brownies unless you saw the guys make them.
Shoot, I don't eat them unless I see the guy make them now too, because you never know, man. You never know these days.
And if you need to get bombed like that, go the Rogue Shop, July 4th, 30%
brownies. Yeah. Late night, Paul.
Hey, we don't want to give it away. Will says, "Love the great show, guys." Roddy's bombed, yeah, man, as always, man. He's not. No, Roddy's good, man. I'm telling you, I've seen Roddy bomb before. This is fine.
You're gonna be bombed in about 2 weeks, baby.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We'll be going. We'll be going down to New Orleans. Ben decided to not go with us, so
Ben wasn't invited.
I will. You know what, Paul? You want to promise for me to go to this next year, no matter the circumstances? You want to promise?
I don't. Ben, let's just promise that you're still on the staff next year, bud. Let's get that done first, and then we'll.
And alive. I'll promise to be alive, hopefully.
But no, Drunkle Roddy. Yeah, that's kind of what it's like. It is, Brett. To be honest with you, it's like your cool uncle that he slips you, a Lucy and lets you go at it. Or doesn't tell you if there's lotion in the shower or if it's body wash, and you get out either way. Get it done.
Dude, that's completely on you.
It won't
lather. Guys, we appreciate it so much. It's the UGA Sports Call-in show presented by UGA Sports. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that sub button on this channel. Hit the like button on the video, guys. We're going to try to outdo Roddy, Coach, and Dane on the likes this time. And if you missed any of it, if we missed any of the show, it'll be up on the podcast later for tomorrow when you're driving back home from your in-laws. After a long weekend, you can listen to us on your way back home. Guys, we appreciate it so much for Radi Nabulsi, Ben Bachman. I'm Paul Maharry. We'll see you guys next time. And I got to find this outro. I should have found it before then. All right, guys, we'll see you.